Checking in the live stream, thanks. Check, check, check. Just checking for the participants online. If you can hear me, just give me heads up, thanks. Councillor Booth, I'm just checking for your audio, thanks.
Testing Zoom audio.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Testing Zoom audio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting for March the 23rd. As we call the meeting to order, we'd just like to acknowledge that we do our business on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish people, and specifically we recognize the Lekwungen people known today as the Songhees and Kasapsum nations, and that their historic connections to these lands and adjoining waters continue to this day. First order of business, as always, is approval of the agenda. Moved and seconded, thank you. I just want to acknowledge we do have Councillor Braithwaite online, and I'm just waiting for my computer to bring up my access, but just want to confirm that Councillor Braithwaite is online. She is, okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we have a mover and seconder for approval of the agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. We have adoption of the minutes for 2 meetings on March 9th. Can I have a mover for both? Moved and seconded. Any changes, corrections, or amendments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. My mayor's remarks are very short tonight. We've had lots of meetings of late. I do just want to acknowledge that the Victoria Sketch Club held its 117th show down at the Glen Lyon Norfolk School, and express my appreciation to Councillor Smart, who's acting mayor this month, who stepped in on my behalf for doing the opening remarks. Also, just want to acknowledge that this week is the Greater Victoria Sports Awards, which is a great and new event that's happening in the region these days. With that, we then move to public comment and question period, and this is an opportunity for any members of the public who wish to speak to council. This is on items not on the agenda, but are of general interest to the community. They can be in the form of questions, they can just be comments. You're more than welcome to come forward. Again, any item that's not on the agenda, you're welcome to speak to. I have a couple of hands pop up. Please come forward, and I'll walk you through the process. It's very straightforward. Have a seat, and as you sit down, there's a button in the middle of there that shows on a microphone, and you can just state your full name and just your municipality of residence. You don't have to give your address, and then you have up to 3 minutes to talk to council.
Lois Liggett, and I'm from Oak Bay.
Welcome, Ms. Liggett.
Hi. I was wondering about what the procedure and the considerations are around multiple trees on a property where there are raptors nesting in the trees.
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but perhaps a member of staff that's in the room, I would think it's probably going to fall onto Parks, who would probably have the detailed information. Mr. Bull?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a start. We happen to have somebody from staff Parks here too, if there's additional information. But the tree protection bylaw, in terms of removal of trees, requires a replacement. It's either 1-on-1 for certain trees or 2-for-1 for special trees. In terms of any nesting in trees, that's through the arborist or the person that is removing trees. They are required under provincial law to make sure that there's no active nests in the trees, and if there are, then they have to stay outside of the nesting season before the tree can be removed. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there are some special considerations for eagle nests, and I know that, that was my understanding. If they're active nests, they can't be removed during the active nesting season. Is the director, I didn't see the director of Parks here. Is he online? Okay, no. That's the answer I can give you tonight.
Is an application always required by, a builder?
For tree removal?
For tree removal or for, replacement of trees and...
Right. The short answer is yes, but Mr. Bull, perhaps you can give a little bit more of a detailed answer for that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, if there are trees of a certain size on the property, at time of building permit that gets reviewed, and a tree permit is required if their trees are either altered or removed, and then the tree bylaw outlines what kind of replanting is required. Thank you.
There was another hand that popped up. Please come forward. Same process as was ably demonstrated last time. Your name and your municipality of residence. Middle button. Here we go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So my name's Scott Greiba. I live on Lansdowne in Oak Bay. I'm a geotechnical engineer. I read through the geotechnical feasibility report for Turkey Head Marina, And I just wanted to point out a few highlights from that report, maybe save you some time as you're going through options. Along the north side, the bedrock is higher and it slopes towards the ocean to the northeast. Underneath the parking lot is fill that was basically been randomly dumped. And these are highlights from the report. We still need to do, or the engineers still need to do more work. We'll have a better idea what the conditions are, once they go through phase 2. But there are a few layers within the fill that look like they may liquefy. And if it liquefies, it will tend to flow down towards the ocean. If you decide to build something away from where the bedrock's higher, on deep foundations, those piles or caissons will want to be pulled as that fill moves downhill. So it's just a little more complex than usual. Just keep it in mind as you're looking through options. The other thing to be aware of is that you'll only get one level of parking because of the ocean so close and the height of the water table. And it's also mapped as a tsunami hazard area. I'm not sure if that's on your radar, but just be aware of that. It's not as dangerous as the West Coast, obviously, but you're still looking at a tsunami of about 2.5 meters and 1 hour of notice. So sometimes these things, it's not. It falls between disciplines, so it can fall between the cracks. So just keep that in mind as you look at the options. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. It's hard not to be aware of the tsunami risk if you go down there in the winter and watch the waves breaking 10 feet over the edge of the rock wall. Is there anybody else who'd like to address council this evening? I'm still pulling up the online. I don't see anybody online with their hand raised. Is there anybody else in the room who would like to speak to council on just as, it can be any subject. Those are great examples of subjects that are totally appropriate to ask questions of or make comments. All right, not seeing any other hands, I'm going to come back to this table and we'll move on to the agenda items. We move then to section 6, which is Committee of the Whole recommendations. So these are the two financial plan meetings. So Committee of the Whole makes recommendations to council. We do have robust public input during those meetings, but as we consider essentially adopting the recommendations from Committee of the Whole, we also open it up for public comments. If there's any other comments from the public on either of those two items, either the overview meeting that we had on the financial plan or any of the directions and reports from the second meeting on March the 12th, we're more than welcome to come forward and speak to those items now. And make that same offer online. If anybody is online, you can use the React tab within the Zoom application to indicate your intention to speak. If anybody is here to speak to item 6.1 or 6.2, this is your chance. We don't usually have anybody speak if it's been a Committee of the Whole, because most people who wanted to speak come out to that. All right, coming back to this table then, we can just move all of these together.
Move the recommendations under items 6.1 and 6.2, Your Worship.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Don't see any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That is essentially just us adopting our own recommendations from us sitting as committee, in case people are wondering why so little debate on that item. We move now to section 7. So our first order of business is 7.1, a strata conversion for 916 Island Road. We have Ms. Cook here. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening to yourself and councillors. This application is seeking approval from council for the conversion of a previously occupied building as part of a building strata subdivision for the property at 916 Island Road. The development of this property was undertaken as a permitted activity and included the construction of a new duplex as the principal building and the conversion of the existing house into an accessory dwelling unit. The applicant is now seeking to stratify all 3 dwelling units as per the subdivision plan in attachment 6 of the staff report. Section 242 of the Strata Property Act regulates a process for approving the strata conversion of previously occupied buildings and stipulates that council approval is required as the approving authority. Staff have reviewed the application against applicable bylaws, including the zoning bylaw, and the building is compliant with these bylaws. Staff have also reviewed the application against relevant OCP policies and considered that the application is supportable, particularly in relation to H19, which supports the building strata conversions where the original primary residence is retained. Therefore, staff have recommended that that council approve the strata conversion. According to our records, the applicant was issued final occupancy permit for the renovation of the existing house today. So in the staff report, you will see that the completion of this process was recommended as a condition. As this process is now complete, it is no longer required if council wishes to approve the strata conversion. Staff have also recommended that council authorize the approving officer to execute the necessary documentation to confirm council has approved the conversion. This process is separate to council approval and is completed when the applicant is seeking to deposit the plan with the Land Title Office. The applicant is here today, Mr. Jim Alders. I understand he wishes to speak to his application, after which both staff and the applicant are happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, very well. Is Mr. Alders here? Yeah, you please come forward. I'll ask that you keep your remarks reasonably short, and we will then have the opportunity for council to ask questions. Yeah, push the middle button to turn it on. If you could also just state I know you've been introduced, just your full name and municipality of residence for the record.
Certainly. My name is Jim Alders. I am a resident of Saanich, 4908 Prospect Avenue. I've been in Victoria for 30 years, and I've actually been in 10 of those years in Oak Bay. I'm a past member of the Oak Bay Design Panel, and actually spent the last 2 of the 6 years as chair. My children have attended BYLAWS Elementary and as well as Oak Bay High, and I'm invested in this community. So we had early engagement with this, looking at this property back with planning staff in May and June of 2024, looking to develop something which additional infill housing, which would fully align with Oak Bay's infill housing strategies and also within the community framework and the OCP. While extending the life of this charming 90-year-old character home, which I think there's images of it within your report from staff, which is on Island Road in South Oak Bay. Now, while the R5 zoning does permit up to 4 units on this lot, as a design professional, I really felt that was a little too much, and certainly too much density. It would have compromised the character of the neighborhood, and it also would have required demolition of the existing house and significant trees on the site. So through a smaller, more sensitive infill, which we thought was more appropriate, we were able to retain the existing house and also save some of these mature trees, a gorgeous cherry tree right on Island Road, and also a willow in the back, which really spans property line to property line, and I think all the neighbors appreciate. Too often our older building stock, it gets demolished and replaced in development. This weakens the heritage fabric of Oak Bay. By reinvesting in this 1937 house, we've helped retain the existing character and streetscape of Island Road while providing much needed housing in this community. The upgrades included structural and seismic upgrading, energy upgrading, including triple glazed windows and insulation throughout. There's a heat pump to replace an oil furnace. There's a new roof. We've replaced walls where they had rotted through in spots, and also new site services throughout, including site drainage across the site. This small infill project will contribute to more affordable ownership options and for the community. Originally, we were aimed at older residents that might be looking to downsize and stay in their community, but we've actually been surprised that it's been had a lot of interest by young families that are looking for a quiet, safe neighborhood. This is a great opportunity to sort of keep young families in South Oak Bay. I'll end with a quote. The greenest building is the one that is already built. That's by Carl Elephant. By reusing the existing structure, we were able to reduce embodied energy of this house by 75% compared to building new. We diverted 200 tons from the landfill and extended the lifespan of this character home by at least 100 more years. There's about a dozen of these infill projects in Oak Bay. This is the only one that does retain an existing structure and reinvests in the heritage fabric of our community. We hope that it'll actually inspire others to do the same and to maintain the character that we really love and hold dear in Oak Bay, and I hope that it'll also inspire council as you evolve.
And just for clarification, this, by the nature of it, does not allow for public input, but we are here to represent and ask questions on behalf of the community before considering the application. So are there questions from members of, yes, go ahead, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mayor. And these are actually for staff, and they're not so much about the proposal, just about how the proposal works in conjunction with other regulations on the books. And particularly, I wanted to understand if something is now, if infill developments are now stratified, how would that work in conjunction with our new short-term rental regulations, which I think specify that only one of the units would be available for that. And in the context of our discussion of developing that bylaw, it was always about renters and owners, but under stratification, it would be owners and owners. So I just wondered if you could comment on that, please.
Sure, Mr. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So with the proposed short-term rental bylaw amendments, they provide for one short-term rental per parcel. So as this is a building strata subdivision as opposed to a bare land strata or fee simple subdivision, it remains as one parcel. So you can have one short-term rental on the property.
Yes, thanks for making that clear. Just to follow up, though, how would the determine if all three owners wanted to do it? Is it up to them under our regulatory framework to figure that out?
Mr. Bull?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yes, indeed, our program is limited in scope, so it is first come, first serve, and if there are more interest on the property, they would need to get together and make plans together. Thanks.
And thank you. I had another, this is a planning question, and I feel sad that I don't know the answer, but if once stratified, does the original home still maintain its identity in our zoning bylaw as the accessory dwelling unit? And what about all the other rules with respect to the zoning on the site and what can be developed? Like, it still could take a fourth unit, right? So I just would like to understand that a little bit more in terms of how the zoning bylaw will interact with the forms on the site.
Yes, thank you for the question, and through you, Mayor. As this is a building strata subdivision, it remains as one parcel. So when this was an infill development, the construction of the new duplex became a principal building, and the existing house was converted to an ADU. So as it's still one parcel, that remains as the ADU, and it's still required to comply with all ADU building regulations.
Thank you. And so just again, if there was a subsequent application for a fourth, not saying that this would happen or would even be possible, but if there was a subsequent application for a fourth unit on the site, it would be dealt with under the context of that bylaw for infill housing on a single lot, correct?
Thank you. Yeah, through you, Mayor. Well, because it's a building strata subdivision and it relates to that previously occupied building, if a new dwelling unit was proposed for the site, it would be restricted by the strata plan. So this would actually be coming back to council because of this strata, I suppose, subdivision.
Thank you. That's really clear. That's what I wanted to know.
Thank you. I have Councillor Braithwaite online. Thank you for being here and joining us, despite not being able to join us in person. Councillor Braithwaite?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. And going back to the comments that were just made around the primary unit and the ADU, can staff perhaps just explain how the primary unit ended up becoming the ADU, and the ADU, what would have originally been an ADU became the primary unit? Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Woods.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I guess the way it works, so the duplex was proposed as the principal building, which has different building regulations to an ADU. So an existing unit can only be converted to an ADU if it meets the regulations of an ADU, which is basically, I think the biggest one is that reduced height. So it can't be done in all situations. It has to comply with the ADU regulations in order to convert that existing house.
Continue, Councillor Braithwaite.
May continue, Mayor. I know that our OCP policy really encourages ADUs as long-term rentals. So I'm just wondering how approving this as a strata conversion, in this case, how does it align with our broader goals around maintaining rental housing?
Go ahead, Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Yeah, you can see in the staff report we have two OCP policies that point in different directions. One specifically talks about rental housing and accessory dwelling units becoming rental housing units. There's also another policy that talks about specifically strata conversions, where existing buildings or heritage is retained or protected. So yeah, in this case, it's an existing building that was already there, has never been a dedicated rental unit. However, yeah, both policies are there for council to be able to rely on. In our staff advice, we have relied on the one specific to strata conversion because the building was already a ownership unit, if you will. But yeah, there are other policies that encourage retention or creation of rental units as well. Thank you.
Councillor Braithwaite?
Thanks so much, Mayor. Thanks for that answer. And then, what specific upgrades remain outstanding under the BP 016704? And are there any risks to approving that prior to the final inspection? Or do we anticipate any risks?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. So that building permit, the final occupancy permit was just issued today. So that was after this report was finalized. So I would say that generally I don't think that the risks are necessarily there in terms of how we worded the initial motion and resolution. But yeah, that's been resolved as of today.
Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. My last question, Mayor, would be around, there was some affordability claims in the report, I believe, from the proponent. And I'm just wondering if we have any evidence or expectation of price points for those units, or are the affordability claims just really purely market-based? That's probably for their proponent.
To the applicant, go ahead.
Yes, we have been working with a local realtor who's been involved with some of these infill projects. So he's proposing from pricing between 1.25 and 1.5, which is about a million less than what you typically find for a single-family home in this neighborhood. Any further questions on that?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of council? Just for my clarification. Oh, sorry, Councillor Green, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a follow-up question through you to Councillor Braithwaite's question around pricing. Is that per unit? So in other words, that there will be 3 units on this property, correct? So it's 1.2 to 1.5 per unit on the property? Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you. My question just relates to access to the buildings. I'm aware that the laneway in behind is not a very developed laneway, but it is the parking access for the buildings, for the new duplex. Is there access, from walking, if visitors and so forth coming off of Island Road, or does the strata essentially cleave the two so you can't get through from Island Road?
No, the original driveway that went beside the house, the existing house, ADU, that is being retained as common property so that anybody trick-or-treaters can walk from Island Road and visit all 3 front doors.
Okay.
And there are 2 parking spots off of that common driveway, and then the third one for the third unit is off the laneway.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. And the front doors for the duplex are facing towards Island Road down that driveway, is that correct? Yeah. Okay, thank you. And I could just get, my only other question here is really, and I appreciate you being here today, Mr. Alders, is I'm not 100% clear on the reason for the ask of the strata conversion here, as opposed to leaving it as sort of a single unit with rental units within. Can you maybe just give a bit of a rationale again on the, that's to you, yeah.
Yes. The rationale is, so why rental why?
No, why the strata?
Strata
approach,
as opposed to rental? Yes, I think the market it's a market-based decision. So yeah, discussing with realtors, that was the direction that they were advising.
Okay, thank you. And I think I will, this essentially concludes my questions for the applicant and staff. Are there any other questions? Okay. Process-wise, we generally have a chance to ask questions for anything future that has public input. Following our questions, we have asked for public input. There's no public input here, and then we come back and seek a motion, and then we can have a debate on that motion. So there is a revised recommendation. I want to point that out from the earlier report, and that is the approve the conversion of the previously occupied building and authorize the approving officer to execute is the second half. I believe we can do them together as a motion. Is that correct? So if someone wishes to make that, or
Move the staff recommendations, Your Worship, as with the amendment that you mentioned.
thank you. Yeah, moved and seconded. Any discussion around the table? Okay, I don't see any discussion around the table. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thanks. I'll just take a moment to say I really appreciate the approach of reusing an existing building and focusing on saving trees. And so thank you for doing that work. There's definitely some of the discussion we've had around this table of how can we word our policies in such a way to encourage saving existing housing stock. So appreciate seeing that example. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to speak very briefly to the application. The application in front of us is for the Strata conversion. So I think what I've heard on this, and frankly on a number of the infill pieces, is we're learning how people are using the bylaws. We're finding that they are, I think we're all a little bit surprised about what is and what isn't allowed, and I think some of the massing in the backyards and things is becoming a bit of a concern for some people. I just want to acknowledge that. We're not here to stop or to approve the application. This is ultimately a question of, this is compliant with the zoning. And so the question from the council is the Strata approach, as opposed to refusing the Strata, a reasonable ask on this. So I just wanted to lay that out there, because I know that that's a little bit divorced from the larger question of the impact of these developments on neighbors and the approaches. So I appreciate the context provided by the applicant. At the end of the day, this is ultimately a question back to council with the reasonableness of the Strata application. Don't see any other discussion on the question, so sorry. It's all right, Councillor Braithwaite, my apologies.
I was being very patient with my hand up. Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling with this one, basically because it may seem like a small application, but to me it really raises a broader question about rental housing and a precedent that I'm not sure if I'm really comfortable with yet. So generally I'm supportive because it does align with our policies, and as you've mentioned, Mayor, this did not come to council for approval for the actual building that was built, but it's now coming for approval for a Strata. So it aligns with our policies. It adds housing, but I do think it highlights a broader issue around tenure and the balance between rental and ownership that we may want to take a closer look at going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Patterson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I too do appreciate this application coming forward. I think the difference, at least to me, in looking at this, is that the property spans two streets. And this is probably the type of application we would have liked to have seen coming forward if we had just proceeded with our missing middle housing for Oak Bay. So it is a little different. I do appreciate the mayor's comments about the laneway in the back, and I still will want to see how that progresses as time goes on. But I think the big difference here is it's not just a building on the same lot that does not have two-street exposure. And so from my perspective, that this is one of the reasons that I do support it. Although I do note that with the market rates that are suggested, it still does move that bottom-end housing up to a level that, we will have to see if the market accepts it or not, and how quickly it is taken up to see the success of it. But it's really because it spans two streets that I see a difference in this application.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I'm going to call the question, not seeing any other hands. All those in favour? And those opposed? Councillor Green opposed? That carries. We move then to item 7.2, the covenant amendment for 592 Island Road. Mr. Green is not here, so I believe it's Mr. Bull. Welcome.
Thanks again, Your Worship. Introduction on my part. I'm also joined by Bill Stephen, our tree preservation coordinator, who will join me shortly. And this covenant application follows up on a previous approval 1 year ago, when Council supported exploratory excavation within a tree covenanted area, or tree protection area. The project involves a house with a secondary suite, and the applicant seeks permission to extend the footprint of the building into the covenanted protected area. This covenant was created through a rezoning process in 2018, where a small portion of what was then a larger lot became the covenanted protected area, and subsequently a subdivision was approved, and this created this particular lot. Staff have reviewed the current application and the results of last year's exploratory work, and although the tree impact appears to be survivable, staff advised that the goal of the covenant is, or seems, in our view, incompatible with the request due to the moderate but significant stress it would have for the karaoke tree. And in addition, staff see some alternative siting options on this site that are available, and has led staff to recommend denial of this request in our report. That said, there is of course an option for Council to approve it as well. And Mr. Bill Stephen is here available to answer further questions about tree protection, and I believe the applicant is here as well and can also answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand there's Justin Lalonde and Robert and Anita Paris may also be in the room. Thank you. I'll turn it over to members of, did you wish to do a brief overview of the summary, or were you okay to go to questions? Okay. Are there questions for members of council? Go ahead, Ms. Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you. I have a few, because and I guess the basis of them is I'm trying to compare this situation context to other things that are going on when subdivisions happen. And my first one is we've had a few requests for our 4 lots to be turned into 2 R5 lots in the last little while. And this is now happening today in the context of our infill housing strategy and housing targets and on a whole new thing. So I just wanted to go back to 2018 when this covenant was first created, and get a sense of, was this before we as a community even started having our own discussions about infill housing, before the province told us that we had to do it? I'm just trying to understand this particular covenant and restriction and in that context. So that's my first question.
Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Mayor. Although I wasn't there myself, I believe this is before the infill housing strategy development started. It's followed shortly after. So it would have been at a time where there were no policies just yet about infill, besides some general policies in the official community plan. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my recollection, but I just from being around town, but I wasn't on council, so I wasn't probably paying as much attention. And this may be for, our tree specialist, or maybe it's for planning. In this case, I just want to clarify something. In the report, at some points, it talks to multiple trees in the covenant area, but then the staff reporting seems to just focus on the Gary Oak. But so the first thing is just clarification. How many trees are currently living in the covenant area?
There are 4 bylaw protected trees within the covenant area. One was particularly focused upon because its root system and its canopy was going to be most significantly affected by the house. The other ones are tucked away and are readily protected by just the usual tree fencing.
Thank you. That's helpful. Good. So the next question is to sort of casting us back to the time at which the covenant was created. It seems like a really kind of, how often would this happen if somebody's coming in to do a subdivision? Do we have any other examples of a covenant being created for what seems to be, in this case, really, that you say four for trees, but particularly one. It's the Gary oak that seems to be the tree that everybody's the most concerned about, and I understand that. So how often is this tool used for tree protection?
Mr. Bull?
Thanks. Through you, Mayor. Mr. Stephen confirmed that there's no known examples under park staff. I think there are covenants in other situations, not necessarily about trees. We've seen a couple of form of character covenants related to specific sites. So it has been a tool that the district has occasionally used, although there are not other tree examples we can think of, but there may be some title somewhere that we're simply not aware of. Thank you.
If I may, Councillor Watson, as someone who was at the table at the time that this happened, and this is going from my recollection, is that the original applicant had asked for a subdivision of the property, and council was concerned that because trees may be removed if they're within the footprint of a building, and the tree was within the normal setbacks of a building, that the land could be subdivided and then the tree could come out automatically with the location of the house on that. So it was a condition essentially by council to say we can grant the rezoning and subdivision, but with the condition that we put a covenant on around the outside drip line of the tree to make sure that development that happens protects the tree. It can't just go there and have the tree removed because it fits within the footprint of the building. And that was the genesis of that conversation that happened, if that helps give some context.
Yes, thank you. It does. And so I guess my last question actually is kind of a compare and contrast. And I think it's the very next, or maybe it's the next item on the agenda. At 8.1, later on in the agenda, we're actually looking at bylaws for a subdivision, which in fact does essentially the same thing, takes an R4 lot and would authorize 2 R5s. And I just note that in that report, we also have trees that are protected trees, but there seems to be no special really discussion or concern about them, and just a note that they would need to come out as a matter of course in developing the next home, or the home on the one of the new lot that's, well, I guess the lot that's created that's got the vacant land for the house. So I just wondered what's the difference between the two situations? We've got 2 applications that are basically asking to do the same thing, and a staff recommendation here to say please don't. So I just would like a little insight into that.
Mr. Bull.
Well, the difference is that there's a covenant around the one tree that enables us to protect that tree, whereas if there's no covenant, then it's within the building envelope, and then those trees are at risk of being lost.
Thank you. I do understand that, but I guess maybe the question was, why wouldn't we also have been requesting a covenant for the subsequent application later this evening, where there is also trees that are mentioned and certainly are protected under our tree protection bylaw?
I think ultimately it would be up to council to give that direction, but Mr. Bull?
Yeah, thank you for you, Mayor. Sometimes this does come up. I think there was a recent upland siting and design where it is, either was suggested at some point in the process. I don't think that proceeded. The other thing is the type of tree also matters. I remember in the other case from last year that on the other property, the tree species is very different. A very big tree that grows very fast and less compatible. Well, and also there's the footprints of the future building. So a different, we tend to care more about the Gary oaks and the arbutus trees than some of the others because they're not as rare. Thanks.
But in fairness, we love all our children equally. Yes. Councillor Watson? Okay. Councillor Green, then Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the report. I guess the key paragraph for me is the conclusion by staff in the report, and that states that staff have reviewed the application in the context of the findings of the exploratory excavation and the district's tree protection goals and the policies and regulations of the OCP and zoning bylaw, given that alternatives exist to site the proposed dwelling fully outside of the covenant area, and the cumulative effects of the proposed development on Gary Oak, number 491, are inconsistent, and it goes on. I guess my key question, though, through you to the applicant is, why not build, given that there is other siting available, why not build outside the covenant? Why threaten the trees and build inside the covenant? Because that's really what staff said. There are other options that are perfectly reasonable. Thank you.
And I'm going to invite the applicants up. I'm not sure who wishes to speak, if it's Mr. Lalonde or Mr. and Mrs. Paris. Yeah. You have to do the same process of just putting on the microphone, stating your name for the record. And
It's Rob Paris at 594 Island Road, and my wife Anita Paris. And we are the owners of the property, and Justin Lalonde is the applicant. He's the purchaser of the property, and he is the one wanting to build build the house on the lot.
And I see Mr. Lalonde is online. Yeah. So I might give that question to Mr. Lalonde then as the applicant.
Yeah, because I'd like to add too is that Justin has been part of the whole process since he purchased it. And we're the owners, and we've been apprised of it, but Justin's been the one who's been hands-on dealing with everything.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Paris. Mr. Lalonde, welcome to the meeting.
Hi, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you. I think with regards to the overall looking at the street, the size of the covenant is about 33% of the size of the lot, which is situated in the front of the house, or sorry, in the front of the lot. So what we would do in essence is, based on the site plan that was originally picked, it would push that house back outside of the covenant, but it also did not meet the bylaws for rear setbacks. So when we first started down this process, it wasn't reasonable. We weren't able to build a house that would match, the 30% lot coverage. Or sorry, is it 30%? I believe it's 30%. Sorry, I have Norwalk virus. It's been a tough day. So, and so what we are looking at doing, we have taken this tree, and I understand, it's Councillor Watson, sorry?
The question came from Councillor Green, but you can direct your comments through me as the chair. Yeah.
Sorry. So basically what we've done is we have focused on protecting this tree. This is part of our overall plan. And we are only asking to go in less than 3% into the covenant. It's 5.5 feet. This covenant is, like I mentioned, I think it's, sorry, I don't have the exact numbers of how long it is, but we are focused on protecting this tree and having, long-term suitability for this tree in terms of, we have a family there to water it, to take care of it. And I think it's the idea that we want this to be a viable situation and protect the tree in the long run. And we have gone through a lot of effort to ensure that the impact to this tree is minimal, or if anything. So, driving down the Oak Bay Ave, and you can see how an oak tree is surrounded by sidewalks and streetscape. It just kind of surprises me that, that this is even an issue. It's incredibly important to my family, and this tree has been essential to the design of our home from the very beginning. So.
Thank you for that.
We just cannot build a house that would work. We'd have no backyard. I have 3 kids. We would have no right now, the way this current application is, we have 31 feet in the backyard and we have 48.5 feet in the front yard. Typically, houses are pushed forward, so they line up with all the other houses on the street. I mean, even the way this sits, it's going to look off because we are going to be behind other homes on the street, and then into the backyards of other homes surrounding.
Thank you, Mr. Lalonde. Councillor Green, any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
No, thank you.
I have Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, Councillor Green asked the question that I was going to ask, so I'll direct my question to staff, because what I read in the report in regards to a compliant building. So can staff just clarify that a compliant building could be achieved outside of the covenant area?
Go ahead, Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to explain that. There is a page in the report. I want to give you the exact page number. It's attachment 6, the site plan, and page 63 indeed in the current, in the today's package, and page 19 of 26 in the report. It's where you can see a red line around the building footprint. It's kind of on the left and on the top. It's a bit, it shows some room around the building itself. Those are the regular setbacks from the zoning bylaw. So there's a bit of room there on the top side of the drawing still, which kind of is similar in size to the encroachment on the south end of on the lower end of the drawing into the covenanted area. And this is the key reason where staff feels that within the allowable building envelope of the zoning bylaw, it's possible to push it back. That said, as Mr. Lalonde is saying, it does reduce his size of his backyard, and that's his reason for his applications today. But that's the background. So as far as staff can see, the current footprint could be moved over, but it does reduce the backyard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to you for giving the history of how the covenant got put in place to begin with. So I guess my question would be to staff, if we approve this amendment, what would that mean for integrity of other covenants in Oak Bay? Because integrity of covenants is paramount in my humble opinion, but what would this amendment mean for the integrity of other covenants within our jurisdiction?
Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Well, the covenant amendment process is one of the ways that these can be revisited, but it's always case by case. And as you can see today and last year, the applicant did need to do investigations to justify, or what's it called? Justify their application. So it's always a case by case scenario, and so it's really, as far as staffs look at this, it's this very case by case situation to look at these things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see other questions, so more may come up in the course of debate. This isn't a public input portion, so we'll come to the side of the table, and I'll turn to members of council. Happy to, if someone wishes to move the staff recommendation, or
I'll move the staff recommendation.
so the staff recommendation, I always hate negative staff recommendations, but in this case the recommendation is for denial for the covenant change being requested. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite, I'll let you go first as you made the motion. Oh, you're muted.
My apologies. I think that for me, I really go back on the original intent of the covenant, and I think that when we, as a council, make covenants like this on different properties and different things within our municipality, residents want to be able to depend on that. And I know that sometimes there are really great reasons to change a covenant, but in this particular case, I feel pretty strongly that the integrity of this covenant should stay in place. And so that's why I'm going to support the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Other discussion? Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you. I am not going to support the motion, and I have some reasons for that, which I will enumerate. I think that actually that this is a reasonable request from the applicant. for a number of reasons. One is that he's taken a thoughtful approach to trying to create a family home on a smaller piece of land than was there at a time when we are encouraging this kind of development in our community. We are also concerned about our streetscapes, and we want that our homes to address the street in a way that kind of matches the pattern or the rhythm of those streetscapes. And I do his argument that pushing the home further back and losing a backyard does not achieve that. I agree with. I think that it is not doing a service to the community if we actually in effect insist that the home be sited differently in order to protect the covenant. I also think that this is a very minor incursion into the covenant area, and I do respect the staff's opinion, and I know that we, from time to time, we have in front of us, from the applicant's arborist and our own arborist, differences of opinion about what will happen. But my reading of the advice, even from staff, is that it is actually, yes, there is some risk that this tree will not do as well as it might not otherwise, but that risk seems to me to be relatively low compared to if we were looking at a situation where this building or its foundation was 50% into the covenant area or 25% into the covenant area. This is a small incursion, and I think it's minor enough that it would be nice to support the application because there is a difference of opinion about about the risk. And I also think really underlying this quite a lot is that since this covenant was put in place, we've had quite a change in our planning framework and how we see development in the community and what we're trying to encourage. And I think that we want young families to move into the community. We want them to make homes here. And we have a good application here for a family home with a secondary suite that is a good proposal. And I think on the balance that I favor the housing request over what I see as the small risk with respect to the tree. And just one final thing, because since I saw this request, I've been walking around our neighborhoods myself and looking at how Gary Oaks are dealt with. And this afternoon, at a site that's under construction at, and this is on the public boulevard, but at on Oliver, right at Brighton Lane on the west side of the road, there is a Gary Oak that is way more threatened by what the development that's going on the site than what's actually shown in this application. And there's lots of examples of that. Our Gary Oak can. I mean, not to say that we want to endanger them. That's the way this one has been left. It's all hard surface all around it. But when I compare that situation and many others like it to the request here, I think this is a reasonable request, and I'd like to be able to support this change in addition of some family housing in South Oak Bay. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to the next speaker and Councillor Green, I see a hand up for Mr. Lalonde. Mr. Lalonde, at this point, we're debating at this table. If there's we don't normally have the applicant come and speak again. I'm going to let the members of council speak at this point, and if you feel like there's something that was an error or something, I don't mind giving a chance to speak, but I just want to make sure we give council an opportunity to raise their points. Go ahead, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate very much the owners of the property being here tonight and also the applicant online. But I also appreciate very much the staff report. And I do so because this is an important piece of property. The tree canopy is an important tree canopy. And I think, in fact, we would be doing a disservice to the community if we abandoned the covenant and allowed the building to go forward. Covenants are the one protection that municipalities have to either preserve tree canopy or other natural landscape, whatever they might be. And we do talk a lot about preserving tree canopy in Oak Bay. We're known as a green leafy community, in fact, but we have cool kit programs. We have a active climate change group. we have the Bowker Creek group, and they're all geared to preserving and maintaining the natural environment in Oak Bay. And I think our staff is pointing that out in this report, that this tree is very vulnerable, and that if it happens here, it could happen on other lots. And so I think the covenant is a really important tool that we should respect. There has been a change in the planning framework since 2023 with new housing legislation, and that's the very reason why I would like to see this tree protected and other tree canopies in Oak Bay protected in the context of the push for density. I think we have to be very clear about that. And finally, I think if there was no other option, if this was a win-lose scenario and there were no other options to site the house differently, it might be much more critical. But I think there are options to site the house elsewhere and not disturb the tree canopy and the specific tree and put it at risk. So those are my reasons that I will support the staff recommendation.
I have next Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just speaking in favor of the motion that's on the floor, it's always my approach to try to be as flexible as possible for these types of things, and certainly we want to facilitate much needed housing in all circumstances. I think this is a specific situation that speaks to the language and the documentation that's in front of us. First of all, there is a covenant on the property. The covenant is established and clear, and it's specifically for the purposes of subdivision. Some covenants are archival in nature or date back, and their intent is not clear. They can be on the books for a long time. This one was recently implemented with specific reference to an upcoming subdivision in order to protect the trees in the covenanted area for an anticipated subdivision. So it's very specific to that reference. I think the district has afforded the applicant due process in terms of conducting exploratory work and assessing the impact. And then staff have assessed that impact and have made their recommendation based on that. So I think that there's been provision provided to allow for that exploratory work. In my opinion, and I think council has often followed this direction in where there has been conflict, it is my opinion to generally follow staff's recommendation on these matters as far as when staff make a recommendation to refuse a tree removal permit, etc. We tend to lean on staff's expertise in these situations, so I do the same here. And again, there is a relocation option that does not create an extraordinary hardship. And I appreciate the notation about the yard and some of the components that go around that. But when I talk about extraordinary hardship, we're talking about extraordinary costs or different types of building techniques that would be required to do something different. So I think that that's not the case in this case. And just lastly, as has been referenced here, provincial housing directives on infill really significantly limit the amount of oversight that council has over significant trees in terms of what the directives provide for and what they allow the municipality to do and not do. So where, as the mayor has described, there's been a specific move or a specific an intentional decision made by a previous council to put in place a covenant to do a certain thing, I think we have the opportunity to be consistent and provide that protective and uphold that protective standard. So that, for those reasons, I'll support it, Your Worship. And yeah, I believe this is a specific situation calling for a specific interpretation of the information that's on the books in front of us. Thank you.
Councillor Smart, then Patterson, then I'll speak.
Yeah, thank you. This is a particularly challenging one to look at, and I really appreciate having a lot of the information at our fingertips to make this decision. At the end of the day, I'm not an arborist, so I really do feel I need to rely on the staff report. It's hard for me to look at this and appreciate our Parks Department saying that the cumulative impact of all these things is too much and we might risk the tree loss. And I absolutely don't want to see that happen. It's hard to look at when you see such consideration that's been given to the permeable paver driveway. And you look at the fact that there aren't substantial roots within that critical root zone. And then there's another part in the report that says the 12% canopy loss is, potentially, survivable. And so it's easy to, as someone at the table, to look at each one of those things individually and say, well, it should be fine. And that's where I have to step away and say, I'm not the arborist, and I have this report that says the cumulative impact of these may be too much and we might lose the tree. So I will support the recommendation on the table, but this was a really hard one to look at, because when you take it apart in pieces, it all looks very reasonable. But I had to make the final decision just looking at the park's recommendation.
Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I won't go on at any length because there's already been a lot of good commentary around the table. I will support the motion that is presented on the table. As has been stated by others around the table, there is a covenant that allows us to protect this tree, and I think that's very important. And although I listened to Councillor Watson's well thought out response to this, I guess when I think of it, and I look at certainly the staff report and the risk involved, and I know I live in a neighborhood where we did lose a lot of Gary oaks that should have survived supposedly and didn't. But coming back to standardization of the streets to make them look more standardized and more normalized, I don't think supersedes the importance of dealing with unusual lot configurations, and there are many in Oak Bay, and natural environment that occurs on those lots. And so I think that where we can, and certainly where the covenant exists for us to protect it, then my opinion is that we should endeavor to do that. And so I will support the staff recommendation.
Thank you all, and I'm going to ask everybody to. I know we've all stated opinions on this. I'm going to make a case for declining the recommendation and approving the covenant change. And I appreciate Councillor Watson making some of the points that I was going to make. But the key thing to my mind of this, and maybe this stems from being there at the time, a covenant is put in place at the agreement of all the parties involved. So in this case, it was the original owners of the land and council to make sure that, because everybody was in agreement that tree should be protected, and that it was at risk if the subdivision happened without that. The original owners of that land are here in support of the application tonight. The new purchaser wanting to buy the land is here in the room with us tonight, all asking for us not to remove the covenant, but to make amendments to the covenant, which is to take what was a fairly crudely drawn circle around the tree and amend it to allow for a very specific design. And as I fully respect the technical review, and I think that's been spoken to about that, and I'm not here to question that. I think they've flagged the concerns around the potential harm to the tree. But again, that is the context of the tree protection and the intent of that covenant. But the covenant, to my mind, is this agreement between the district and the owner about how to achieve that end goal. And if I look at this, I look at this in two ways. One is the tree, and the other is that we've had a lot that's been trying to be for sale for, I guess it's 8 years now. 8 years since the subdivision. And everybody's really struggled with being able to build in this space. We have an applicant, again, as pointed out, young family coming in here, again, doing all the right things to protect the tree. There's no guarantees, but if I look at the balance of those two pieces of seeing new building built, doing everything reasonable to increase permeability and other things to improve the chances of the tree, to my mind, that balance is more than met. Not by removing the covenant, I wouldn't support that, but by amending the covenant to this very specific application. It's to my mind, this is really a judgment of reasonableness of the ask. And I think, on the face of it, it was just, hey, we want to remove the covenant or just change it without reason. I wouldn't support that. But I think we've been waiting. I've been sort of remember when we passed this, I think we were expecting an application to come right away. And to my mind, the expectation would always be that it may have to come in a little bit, but the important thing here was that we weren't going to have that tree lost by redevelopment. And to my mind, this application achieves that intentional goal. And the ask, which is an amendment to the covenant, I think is a very reasonable balance between those two things. So I'll lay that out to council. You may or may not agree with me on that, but that's my take of this application. I don't think it's, I think it ultimately meets the rule of reasonableness. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing that further perspective. I was very conflicted on this project, and hearing that point of view, I will vote against the recommendation.
I'm happy to call the question at this point. We are not, because of the nature of this application, the public's not welcome to speak at this.
Okay. Is the owner allowed, or is the owner of the land allowed to speak?
We've had the opportunity for the owner to speak, so that's the process here. Is we have the Q&A for that. I'm happy to, if there's the will of council, I'm happy to allow the owner to speak again, or if not, I'm happy to call the question. Did the owner applicant, Mr. Lalonde has put up his hand to speak. Because it's out of procedure, I'm going to turn to council. If we're here to make a good decision. Are you comfortable with having them? Okay. Seeing nods around the table. So, Mr. Parrish, I'll let you go first, and then I'll go to Mr. Lalonde. Just keep your comments brief, if you don't mind.
I'd like to let you know that my family...
Oh, can you put the microphone on, please? And just again, state your name and municipality for the residents.
It's Rod Parris at 594 Island Road. And our family has lived, my grandparents bought the property in 1936. So we have a long, long history there. And we've been very good stewards of the property. We've been good citizens in Oak Bay. And been here a long time. Our granddaughters live with us now. And so there's been 5 generations that have lived in that property. And, and in the report, it is talked about the water line and also the driveway. I want to let you know historically that is a very hardy tree. That tree has had a driveway go around 3 sides of it for 80 years now. There was a carport with a foundation, a cement foundation that I had to remove as part of the rezoning. And that was like 10 feet from the oak tree. And my grandmother used to drive in one side, she would back up behind the tree and then pull into the carport. So the driveway has been there, as I said, probably since, 45-ish, 1945. In regards to, another issue was the water line. When we put the servicing in at the back of the property for storm and sewer, at the time, the person doing the excavation and the servicing said to the engineering department, why don't we put the water line in when we do the storm and sewer? Engineering said, no, it has to go in from Island Road. And that's been in the report. And it kind of is conflicting, and it kind of puts a really negative tone on it, like the driveway is an issue, the water line is an issue, and could impact the tree. And I'd say, well, if the water line does it, well, actually, engineering subsequent to that said it's not an issue. The water line is not an issue. I don't think the driveway is an issue. And what Justin's arborist said was that it could even enhance the water penetration into the root zone. Okay, I'll speed it up too. Our original plan was to downsize and build a house for ourselves and a suite for my mother. My mother's going to be 105 years old in May. 3 years ago, she developed pneumonia, and she had to go into a home.
She lived with us.
Yeah, she lived 17 years with us, and we looked after her. And so we were going to put a 2-bedroom suite in, one for a caregiver, and then obviously one for my mom, an elevator going up there. But she developed pneumonia, some cognitive issues.
Mr. Parra, I appreciate the context of this, but we do have an application in front of us. I just want to make sure that
we'll wrap it up.
Thank you.
And she now is in Amica, spending $14,000 a month when she could have been living with us. The reason we didn't go ahead with building the property, was in part because of the tree changing the design of our home so much. And yeah, and then, so I'm going to wrap it up now. And so you say, and to me, it's almost cavalier the way the planning department has said, there's ample room to build a house there. I disagree with that completely. You don't get the light, you don't get the streetscape. It creates an inferior lot. If that oak tree wasn't there, that would be probably one of the premier building lots in this city, bar none. We hardly got an offer on our property when we had it listed for sale because of the oak tree. So it has really compromised us in many ways. And I think what Justin's trying to do is very insignificant ask. And it's a hardy tree, and it's not going to affect it that much.
And Justin,
Justin is
Just
going
give
to
your
make
name
it,
for the-
oh,
for the-
Anita Paris
Thank you.
at Island Road. Justin is going to enhance the tree. He wants to make it a focal point. He's going to be watering it and caring for that tree.
I'll let him speak
Okay.
briefly. Mr. Lalonde, if you could just be brief, I do want to come back to this table. We have a motion on the floor, and we want to get to it.
Absolutely. Sorry, I wrote a couple of notes that I just wanted to go over. I just want to begin by saying that I fully support Oak Bay's commitment to protecting Gary Oaks. This particular tree is important to my family, and it's been central to the design of our home from the very beginning. Over the past 2 years, we have worked closely with Oak Bay, staff, certified arborists, and our design team to ensure that this tree is protected. The exploratory excavation confirmed that there was no structural roots that are impacted, and that the effects of our proposal are considered low and survivable. Since our meeting with staff, we made a meaningful revision to further reduce impact. We shifted the home 1 full meter away from the tree, which reduced the required canopy pruning from 21% to 12%. This was significant compromise on my part to reduce the size of the backyard. And the reason for this was just to show that our commitment is to protect this tree. The encroachment we are requesting is very minimal. It's less than 3% overall of the covenant. Staff have expressed concerns about cumulative stress on the tree. I understand that concern. However, the professional evidence confirms that the tree will remain viable. In an urban setting, trees regularly coexist with homes, driveways, and services. The goal is not zero impact, but responsible impact. Staff have also noted the alternative siting is possible. While that may be technically true, those options result in a compromised design that does not function well for our family, the shape of the lot, or the surrounding neighborhood. Planning is not just about what is possible, it's about what is reasonable. This is not a speculative project. This is a long-term family home for my 3 children, my 82-year-old mother, and my wife. The design supports multi-generational living and provides a safe and functional outdoor space, which is essential for my family. I would also suggest that long-term stewardship matters. With a family living on the property who values the tree, it will receive ongoing care and attention for decades to come. Untimely, this proposal represents a careful balance, protecting the significant Gary oak while allowing reasonable use of the property. The tree remains protected. The impact is minimal. The design has been revised to reduce that impact further. I respectfully ask council to support this amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Lalonde. Having given the applicants a chance to speak, is there anybody else who wishes to speak before I call the question? I will do so. Is there any? So just for clarification, the motion live on the floor, as I said, I always get these motions that are inverted, are always want to make sure we don't make mistakes. The motion is to decline the covenant amendment application. That's the motion. So motion in favor declines it, a motion in opposition opens the door for approval. That's again, their hands are going to call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? I have Councillor Smart, myself, and Watson opposed. That motion carries. As I read it, Councillor Braithwaite, I assume that you're voting in favor? Okay.
Yes, sorry, Mayor, I had my hand up. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I did not see it. Thank you to the applicants for coming forward. We move then, thank you, Mr. Lalonde. For anybody here that was here, I'll give a moment for people to leave the room if they wish. I am going to go to 7.3, which is council sign off for undertaking a parking study in preliminary creek and walkway design at Oak Bay Rec Center. We have Mr. Rennick, our Director of Engineering, in the room here with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the introduction.
He thinks you won, but he doesn't know.
Mr. Rennick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you noted, this is a council project sign-off for council's consideration for council priority projects number 26 and 55. The staff report provided a bit of the background, but I'll just give a really quick summary. There had been a council priority project number 26 to extend the Bowker Creek Public Walkway from Oak Bay High School to B Street. That was initially longlisted by council in 2022. Following that, a delegation representing Friends of Bowker Creek made a presentation to council for some improvements that could be made to the creek adjacent to the Oak Bay Rec Center parking lot. Council ultimately created a new backgrounder for that one. That became project number 55. Those two projects were then combined into one because they really are quite similar in scope and in location. And ultimately, council passed a motion at the end of 2025 seeking a council project sign-off. So that council project sign-off is before you tonight. It's being presented as essentially a technical exercise at this point. There's really two components of the project. One is determining how much parking does Oak Bay Rec Center need. The other option is determining what impact will there be on parking supply as the creek is enhanced. Those two pieces of information together will allow council to determine essentially outlines the trade-offs and will allow council to determine if there's an unacceptable amount of parking loss, where would that or how would that be compensated for elsewhere? And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, and appreciate that. And for members of the public interest, this is not an approval of a project. It's essentially approving a scope of the work to be done. Is there any questions for staff? Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Director Rennick. My first question is just with regards to the scope of the parking study. We know that recreation users use the Goldsmith parking lot as well and the street parking, and we know that the rec center lot is used sometimes by those people attending the high school or the commercial areas. So I'm just wondering, like, in order to sort of decipher a parking lot that isn't really, to my knowledge, enforced fully for those that are using the rec center, how does one draw a line around what that parking study area should be to actually get some quality information?
Thank you. Through the mayor, we do consider the Goldsmith parking lot to be part of the rec center complex as well. There is signage indicating that that area is only for patrons. Certainly the comment is well made that while that is the intention, that is not always the case, but it is our intent to include in the scope of the study those parking spaces that are in Goldsmith, as well as the street parking spaces on the sides of Goldsmith and B that are adjacent to the rec center, as I believe that those are, they really do need to be considered in the overall context.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. Ms. Hunt?
Thank you very much. Through the Mayor to Councillor Smart, I also want to let you know that staff are making changes to the parking regulations for Oak Bay Recreation Centre to put in some timed parking so that uses from patrons, commercial patrons at the high school and who are not using the rec centre, that we're looking at ensuring that they the patrons have first priority. So there are changes coming to the parking lots there in terms of 3-hour time limits, and there'll be notification and a public communications campaign around that, and then obviously enforcement. So that will help with some of the parking issues that we currently have at the rec center.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, then to staff, I guess just two follow-up questions to that. One is, will that potential work happen before this parking study to impact it? And then the other one is, will we have some kind of quantifiable information come back about the percentage of users that are really at the rec center in those rec center lots? I just want to make sure that when that parking study comes back, we have all the information we need to make some decisions at the table.
Mr. Rennick?
Through the mayor, the regulation changes that Ms. Hunt referred to will be coming into effect in the short term. Ultimately, the parking study is less about doing counts of how many vehicles are in the lot and really has more to do with there are ratios out there in terms of how many vehicles to the sheet of ice, how many vehicles to the square footage of gymnasium. In speaking with my counterparts in Parks, Recreation, and Culture, we were discussing following a similar approach that City of Victoria is using in the redesigned Crystal Pool. Less to do with looking at current use and more to do with essentially, yes, you have a carrying capacity of how many patrons could use that vehicle, what mix of them are likely to use active transportation or public transportation versus bringing vehicles. And I think that that's really important because we want this to be forward-looking. The Oak Bay Recreation Center is going to be there for a long time, and we don't necessarily want to just look at today's parking when we're considering the impact. That being said, as noted in the business need and background, there is also a real opportunity here for improvements to water quality in Bowker Creek. If you look in the north parking lot right now, there is absolutely no control whatsoever for parking lot runoff. It just goes straight into the creek. So there's certainly multiple considerations here that we're trying to outline for council.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, just one last question. With regards to the geotechnical study, it sounded like that might slightly be a geotechnical study design. I'm wondering, is part of that study to sort of proof the conceptual sketch to see, like, yes, this is how much parking would be lost, and that's where the pathway needs to go? I just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more on the scope of that geotechnical study.
Mr. Rennick?
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, that is the intention. So going back to about 2021, we had concerns that the bank immediately adjacent to the north side of the parking lot was at risk of failure. We had some preliminary studies done looking at an option that would have minimal impact on the parking lot. Ultimately, that slope did fail following the November 2021 atmospheric river, and it was replaced with boulders, riprap armoring, because at that time it was, well, we know that there's a bigger project coming. And so there's always considerations when you're doing these studies. And that consideration was, what is the way that we can take up as little space as possible? The purpose of this study is to say, what can we do that meets the broader objectives of the 100-year blueprint that renaturalizes the channel, that allows for revegetation? And ultimately, that's going to create a footprint that says, okay, well, your bank used to be here and now it's there, which directly equates to these 12 parking stalls, for example, could no longer be used. And that's why we pair it with the parking study, so that a council would be able to determine, okay, what do we need to do? Do we feel comfortable losing those 12 parking stalls, or do we need to provide them elsewhere?
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite?
Thanks very much, Mayor, and thanks to staff for answering the question about the parking enforcement, because I know that Mr. Sollier was in front of us just a little while ago talking about that. I'm looking at a couple of questions in regards to, what do we think the anticipated order of magnitude cost range for the full implementation might be, even at a very high level? Do we have any indication of that yet? I mean, I know we're spending $70,000 on this study, but do we have any estimation of what the full range of the implementation might be?
Mr. Rennick?
Through the mayor, that's not something that I would really be able to comment on at this stage, unfortunately.
Councillor Braithwaite?
I thought I almost had you there. Okay, then I will ask then, how will the future growth in the recreation center use be factored into the parking demand projections? Because with the increase in population that we're planning on, and with the closure of Crystal Pool in the near future, we're going to have what I would probably consider an uptake in our recreation services. So I'm just wondering how that future growth is going to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Mr. Rennick?
Through the mayor, as I alluded to earlier, it really has more to do with how much space is there in the facility. While it is true that we likely will see higher numbers of usage, there's still, there's a finite number of people that can safely be in the pool at one time. There's a finite number of people that can be skating on the rink at one time. And so the approach is really more to look at modeling what can the facility accommodate based on its square footage as opposed to what is its current usage.
Thank you for that. And then my last question would be around engagement, and that would be, at what stage would the public and the user groups be meaningfully engaged in helping to shape the options that might be coming forward?
Mr. Rennick?
Through the mayor, we had outlined in the sign-off that there would be no engagement at this stage because this is a purely technical exercise, that once council received a conceptual design option and wanted to advance it to detailed design and construction, that at that time council could direct what level of engagement they would like to see. And the reason that there's no engagement being proposed at this time is because we felt that this approach, being consistent with the Bowker Creek blueprint, which itself was subject to public engagement, we didn't feel it was appropriate to essentially engage twice on the same thing.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
I don't see, one more hand. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and through you to Director Rennick. Thank you so much for the report. I'm very glad to see that we are looking at this with a very holistic approach, and I know there's quite a few details on it. And the report deals, of course, with municipal properties, but we do have at the Goldsmith parking lot, we do also have the parking demands that, because of the high school, the track that is there, which is high school property, and there has been talk about expanding some of the goals of that in the future. Is that something that should or can be also, there can be a conversation about that also, so that we would understand future impacts that may have on the parking in the area?
Mr. Rennick?
Through the mayor, absolutely. That's something that could be taken note of when presenting this information, even just ensuring that whether it's a separate circle or a separate tally, looking at potential parking demand from the running track. I think that's fair comment, and that's something that we can incorporate in the parking study.
Thank you for that. I don't see other hands, so maybe get it. That's someone willing to move the staff recommendation. That's moved and seconded. This is for approval of the sign-off as attached here. Any other discussion? I will then, just my comments. Good luck with this. It's very important information for us to have to start advancing it, and it's nice to see this work undertaken. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. That carries. Move then to 7.4, which is the municipal consent for CRD bylaw number 4719. Ms. Anderson, did you wish to provide a brief introduction?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. As outlined in the staff report, the district has received a request from the CRD seeking consent to bylaw number 4719, which proposes to dissolve the Traffic Safety Commission. The CRD request outlines that they will require 2/3 consent of participating municipalities in electoral areas, and will also require approval from the Inspector of Municipalities. The recommendation before you provides council with the option to consent or not consent to the CRD adopting the proposed bylaw.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anderson. I can share as well. At the CRD, this is obviously, as noted in the report, transition to the new transportation service, and this is being wrapped up, and it's had unanimous support from the CRD board going forward for these changes to be made. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Braithwaite?
Thanks, Mayor. Just a really quick question. I'm just wondering how municipalities like Oak Bay because we're so small in comparison to some of the other municipalities. How will we be represented within the RTAC compared to the TSC? If we know the answer to that.
So just the Traffic Safety Commission, well, it was established in 1990, has not met for many years. The representation on the Transportation Committee at this point is just a committee of the CRD because it has very little regulatory power. It's more of a policy internal to the CRD. CRD does not own roads, it does not run transit, but it has a convening power. And so currently it's just a committee of the board. Over time, should it take on more robust role in transportation management, the understanding is that would probably change its nature to have more representation from the region.
Thank you. So just to clarify, there's no formal authority, just an advisory input.
Correct. It is a committee of the CRD board.
Thank you.
Any other, Councillor Green? You can make the motion. The motion is in order and we can talk to it. Oh, sorry. Your microphone is off. But since you've read it into the record,
after
I'm
all
just going to
that,
say,
sorry.
no, it's okay. The motion was to consent to the, that's
Consent.
all we need. You know, you read it aloud, which is appropriate. Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Some things are easier than others. All right, moving on to 8.1. We have a zoning bylaw amendment for 2757 Dufferin Avenue. I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Bull to provide the introduction.
Thank you, Mayor. This application is back to you in revised version. A slightly different application was made last year for a similar zoning amendment. And last year, the zoning amendment bylaw was denied. The current proposal is different. This is for, in the sense that it limits the number of lots on the property. Otherwise, it's the same split of the property into lots with a very minor variance proposed to be included in the zoning bylaw of 1 centimeter for lot width. And let me see. And a rezoning, I should say, from R4 to R5 to permit a smaller lot size. In the staff report, we note that the proposed lot sizes are consistent with the surrounding lot pattern in the street, because there are already several parcels in the street. Even though they're zoned R4, they are R5 sized. The advisory body the Advisory Planning Commission reviewed this application in February, and they recommended approval with the following consideration of restricting the permitted density on each of the lots to a maximum of 2 dwelling units, which is something that the applicant indeed has included in their proposal. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bull. The applicant, Mr. Collins, is here. Did you wish to add any few words at the beginning of this before we go to questions? We have the application in front of us. You don't have to, but... Oh, I just inviting you, if you wish to say a few words to frame the application, you're welcome to. If you want to add anything to that, and then I'll go to the questions from council.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Okay. Why don't you just state your name for the
Russ
record?
Collins and North Saanich.
Thank you. Councillor Green?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you for the report, Mr. Bull, and Mr. Collins, thank you for being here. I just wanted to, what struck me about the ortho photos and the site photos is the amount of tree canopy on this lot. It's unusually huge, it seems, and dwarfs the house. What are the plans around protecting or somehow working with that tree canopy, either new trees or preserving some of the existing tree canopy? I would just be interested to know that. Thank you.
At this point, really, I'm not sure what trees are going to be affected by anything that's going to be constructed, because we haven't designed anything to go on the site. Our client has a very good tenant renting the place right now, and his intention is just to take his time, make sure the tenant's taken care of, and then at some point in the future, he'll Because then we'll have to tear the house down. If he subdivides right away, he'll have to knock the house down. So he's going to leave it up and let the tenant stay there for a bit, and then he'll decide what he'd like to do. His intention is to build on one of the lots, not both of the lots, so he'll be selling one and building on one. And we'll definitely be looking at tree retention when we get to that point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions for the applicant or to staff?
Sorry, yes, Mayor, I couldn't get my hand up.
Yeah, no worries. I was looking at you to make sure. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. I guess this question would be to staff. How is the 2 units per lot limit going to be secured, and could it be changed in the future?
Sorry, Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, this would happen through a Section 219 covenant that is registered on title. It would state, and excuse me, I'm off script here. In this case, we are including that provision in the zoning bylaw, and so it's going to be a zoning bylaw requirement, and so that would mean if somebody would want to change it, it would need to be changed in the zoning bylaw. Excuse me for that. I misspoke there for a moment. Thanks.
No worries. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. So a covenant that could be changed in the future. And then, has there been any outreach? This would be, I guess, for Mr. Collins. Has there been any outreach to the neighbors for this recent application? And if yes, were there any? What were their main concerns?
We haven't heard any. We heard some concerns when we first made the new application, because at first we were asking for a higher floor area ratio. And then when we changed it back to what's allowed for a single-family home with a suite, we haven't heard anything since then. So, no, before that even before we came here, we had nobody opposing the subdivision. So I don't think there's any, that I'm aware of anyway, let's put it that way.
Thank you.
So I see a couple of, just for the record, because this is new under provincial law, because of the nature of this application, because it's compliant with the OCP, we are not allowed to take any public input on this application. We're actually forbidden from it, lest it be seen as a public hearing. So in case anybody's wondering, this is actually a provincial requirement for us. So any feedback would go to the applicant. We have to look at this entirely on the merits as laid out before us, and not as on the feedback from neighbors or the rest of the community. So just in case anybody's wondering, this is not our procedure. This is in fact required of us. Thank you for those questions. Are there any other questions for the applicant or to staff? I have one question for staff, just for clarification. My understanding of this application, as it is a rezoning, it is effectively the subdivision becomes a as of right or technical aspect by staff. So we are not officially approving a subdivision here. We are approving a rezoning with very specific attributes that would allow the subdivision to happen at a technical level by staff. Is that correct, Mr. Bull?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Because those provisions are not proposed to be included in the zoning bylaw, they would clear the way for the future subdivision. The approving officer would look at the zoning bylaw and determine that the subdivision fits the zoning bylaw, and that would lead to the next step. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just for clarification, were this not to be allowed, if the subdivision or if the rezoning were not moved forward here, can you just explain, because the application here is essentially a very, very specific rezoning to this, including the limitation in the zoning of 2 units per lot, which is a total of 4 over the 2 lots. Just for all of our clarification, what would be allowed on that lot with this, if the subdivision didn't go ahead as a single lot? Perhaps just for that, just for clarification.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So without the rezoning, the current parcel is eligible for infill housing development, up to 4 units. Would be required to follow the regular allowances. And depending on the number of units that would be built on a site like this, there's tiers of density. So if different steps come different levels, 2 units has a different density than 4 units. And with this being a larger lot, there's definitely enough space for up to 4 units. Thanks.
Thank you. And last question on this one is, my recollection of the zoning bylaw is that the height of the buildings allowed on a lot are proportional to the width of the lot. Is that correct in all cases or in just single-family residences? Mr. Bull? Through me to you, Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to double check that. It definitely applies in R5. I believe it applies in R4 as well. And that means that the wider lot is, the higher, but this is only for single family homes. There's separate height provisions for infill housing. If it's 3 or 4 units, it has its own predetermined height that applies to R4 in this case, the current zoning.
Okay, so then perhaps just for our clarification, this is rezoning to a specific zone. Does the zoning heights then, do they follow the same R5 height limits then?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So if the property is rezoned from R4 to R5, then those R5 height provisions, in the case of single-family homes, would apply, and they would be based on the new width of the new lots. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Net of that is each house will be a little bit smaller, a little lower than it would be if it was a single lot with a multi-unit, is how that works out. Mr. Russ, Mr.
Yeah, I
Collins?
just wanted to point one other thing out is if someone was to develop the single-family lot today with 4 units, the floor area ratio jumps from 40% to 80%. So just to give you an idea, like there's less density allowed if we do the subdivision and do 2 units maximum on each lot.
Thank you for that, Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins, can I just get you to state your name? Oh, you already did. I got it on the record. Thank you. I preemptively did that. I'm just wasting time now. Any other questions for the applicant? I don't see other questions, so I'm going to turn to members of council. The recommendation here is zoning bylaw amendments. What I would suggest, if people wish to move the recommendation, is we do first and second reading, and then we can have a debate and discussion at that time. Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I would move that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4953, 2026, be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Discussion? Don't see a lot of hands popping up on this one. I think I will just speak to it very briefly, is that the ask here is changes to the zoning and making 2 small lots out of a large lot. When it was declined last time, I think there were significant concerns about the potential massing of the building on this particular site. And if there's a subdivision on it without any covenants, there would be 2 potential buildings, each up to 4 units, each up to 80% FAR. And so, I think what's come back before us is essentially a down zoning of the property in exchange for the subdivision. And so you will end up with 2 smaller lots, but with that will come 2 smaller buildings. And I think that's essentially what's in front of us now is the ask, if that's a reasonable ask. I think that's how I read at least this ask, is that's the exchange being given here. We're asked to give a subdivision effectively by changing the zoning. And in exchange, there's smaller buildings being proposed for the lots and less density. Effectively coming up with the same total number of units that would be allowed, but with a smaller actual footprint and density. So I think it's important to kind of put that context in there. And I'm reading that, I'm fairly supportive of that. I think the primary concerns we have with neighborhoods is over-densification and over-massing, and I think the applicant has largely addressed those concerns that were raised at the last go-around. Any other discussion before I call the question? Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. And I will just add to that, I think there's often many different solutions, creative solutions to building on lots. And I think that it's important that we're open to different solutions. And in this case, by essentially putting forward this rezoning that eventually would allow for subdivision, it's giving a potential option to an owner where they could sell one of the parcels in order to develop the other. And of course, we don't know what the situation is that might facilitate, whether it be multi-generational housing or what. But I think it's important that we have an open mind to just creating possibilities for people, especially when it's a reasonable situation like this, where essentially, as you've already suggested, Mayor, that really it's overall going to result potentially in less density and less height on the lot.
Don't see other hands. Oh, Councillor Braithwaite, my apologies.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't support the previous version of this application primarily due to the concerns around the potential level of density. And I do appreciate the applicant has responded to that concern by introducing a covenant to limit the number of units to 2 per lot. I do really appreciate that. That's an important change, and it helps bring the proposal more in line with what our OCP policies around infill housing are. However, this is still a rezoning in an area that's predominantly R4, and I do think that we need to be mindful of precedents. However, this is a larger than average lot, and the resulting parcels are generally consistent with the others in the broader neighborhood. So on balance, I'm prepared to support the revised application as a modest and more controlled form of infill, and I look forward to seeing what's going to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. No other hands. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? You reach third reading.
Your worship, I would move that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4953, 2026 be read a third time.
Moved and seconder. Yeah, thank you. We don't usually have further debate on third reading. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? And for adoption?
Your worship, I would further move that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4953, 2026 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? That carries. Good luck with the project, Mr. Collins. I move now to section 9, bylaws and permits. So we have the 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw, 4957, 2026. Ms. LaChance, welcome to the meeting. And for those who are watching, this is our Director of Finance and Asset Management. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to introduce the 2026 to 2030 Financial Plan Bylaw number 4957 for first 3 readings of the bylaw by Council this evening. The bylaw has been prepared following the financial planning process undertaken by the district starting in September, following through the completion of Council deliberations here this evening. The bylaw, as directed by Council, reflects the Council's direction to reduce the draft tax increase of 11.2% to 8.5%. The resulting plan includes additional funding to support enhanced policing, fire services, additional infrastructure funding, incremental funding for active transportation, increased levels of sidewalk repairs, technology assessment, deer management, as well as the contractual and inflationary increases associated with providing municipal services. The additional costs are offset by tax growth from development, increases to fees and charges revenue, use of reserves to stabilize taxation, and senior government grants. The plan now reflects the directed property tax increase as mentioned of 8.5%, which is generally an average of $428 per household. The financial plan bylaw before you takes on a format familiar to Council in previous years, including the funding objectives and policies as required by legislation. As an added level of transparency this year, one change has been made to insert a new Schedule B, which includes the capital plan over the 5 years of the plan by department. Previously only presented as one line in Schedule A, now is additionally enhanced in Schedule B, and that results in the previous B being Schedule C now. I hope that's straightforward. The recommendation is for 3 readings, and staff are available to address any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. LaChance. Are there any questions from Council? So this is an item open for public input. We obviously had public input at the Committee of the Whole that led to this, but I'm going to take questions from Council. If anybody online or in person wishes to speak to this matter, I will give that opportunity as soon as questions are handled here. If you're online, I'd ask you to raise your hand using the app now so I can go straight to you once questions are completed. Are there any questions, Council, to staff? Unsurprisingly, after spending 6 straight hours on this, we don't have a lot of questions from Council. Is there any comments or questions from members of the public? All right. Seeing none, I will then turn to ask that we have the first and second reading read into the record.
Your Worship, I would move that the 2026 to 2030 Financial Plan Bylaw number 4957, 2026 be read a first and second time.
Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Appleton.
I will, thank you, Your Worship. I will take the opportunity just now, this is the time for comments, just to extend my appreciation to both council and staff for the process that was followed during this year's financial plan deliberations. I think everybody worked exceptionally hard. I think a combination of the departmental reports, the information assembled by Ms. LaChance, the format that it was presented in, and council's willingness to really sort of go hard on the numbers and really explore every opportunity to create savings and to evaluate kind of what was in front of us was very, very constructive. And I was left, I think that nobody would have anticipated a decade ago that we would be walking away with an 8.5% tax increase and thinking that was, a significant win. And at the end of the day, it may not be. But it represents a significant amount of really deliberate work by council and staff to arrive at that. So I'm really pleased with what we can show to the public as part of this process and say that this was a really well-reasoned and really well-supported process. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to say that, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. I have Councillor Green.
Yes, thank you. And I will join my colleague, Councillor Appleton, in congratulating staff on not just the work on the paper and at the council table, but all the pre-work that this involved. I'm sure weeks and weeks of diligence, and it's very much appreciated because it is the last subject that I want to look at often because it's very complicated. It's also it's not part of a process that is exciting for me, but I have to say I'm excited that we went from a a double-digit tax increase to a single-digit tax increase. And I agree with Councillor Appleton, that would not have been considered a win 10 years ago, but in this context, in the context of what's happening in our world and in our province and community, that's a win. I think residents were very concerned about the double-digit potential, and so I'm also grateful to my colleagues for all the hard work, but I'm especially grateful to you, Ms. LaChance, and your staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I had a chance to say my piece after the end of the committee of the whole, and but yes, I think it's worthy of expressing our appreciation for the work that's gone into this to staff. As noted, 8.5 is not small, but by comparison to our surrounding jurisdictions and the pressures on in front of us, it's certainly not certainly appreciate the effort made to get it down to that level. So thank you, everyone. Not seeing any other hands, I'm going to call the question on the first and second reading. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. And for third reading?
Your Worship, I would move that the 2026-2030 Financial Plan Bylaw number 4957, 2026 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. Thank you. And move to number 9.2, Streets and Traffic Bylaw, minor amendments. Mr. Rennick, you're back on. Thank you, Ms. LaChance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report before you tonight addresses some outstanding council resolutions that have been in the tracker, one of which going back to 2024. There had been a couple of minor resolutions that council had passed, sort of looking for bylaw amendments kind of as they fit into the engineering work plan. We also had a request from City of Victoria to adjust the speed limit on the portion of Foul Bay Road between Oak Bay Avenue and Cadborough Bay Road. Ultimately, in bringing that bylaw request from City of Victoria, we did the scan through the resolution tracker to see if we could also deal with some of these outstanding council resolutions. So essentially, there are 4 different things being done through this bylaw amendment, and I'll just kind of do a really brief highlight on each of them. The first one is delegating the authority to establish accessible parking stalls to staff. That, in the current bylaw, has to be approved by council. Council deliberated creating an accessible parking zone at a meeting in 2024, ultimately approved it, and passed a resolution essentially saying this is something that council at the time felt comfortable delegating to staff if there were a bylaw amendment to support it. The next one was exemptions to the 24-hour time limit for parking vehicles on streets for persons with disabilities. The language passed in the resolution from council was really, I think, looking for options from staff. Staff has put forward essentially saying that a vehicle that displays a valid permit should just be exempted from that requirement. There's a bit of rationale in the report for why we're proposing that, but ultimately we felt that so few vehicles would take advantage of this that it was the simplest way to say, versus having to track every 72 hours or 96 hours, let's just say if they have a placard, they're exempt. So that's the approach that we put forward, but happy to hear debate on it. There is a bylaw amendment to facilitate parking by car share vehicles, and that essentially allows the Director of Engineering to create car share only parking zones through a traffic control order. We took very similar language to City of Victoria's streets and traffic bylaw, where they do have that authority. And finally, the Foul Bay Road speed limit, which staff felt was supportable based on how narrow that section of Foul Bay Road is. Would be very difficult for a vehicle to achieve the current 50 kilometer per hour speed limit. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rennick. I'm going to ask if there's any questions. Please go ahead and ask, but I think this seems like one of those ones that very appreciative of you taking all the input and bringing forward the amendments and cognizant of time and just wanting to get through the night. Don't want to spend a lot of time on here if there's no people who have concerns about any of these changes, but certainly go to questions first. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Director Rennick. My first question was just with regards to the mention of nonprofit car share in the bylaw. My understanding is that technically Moto is not for profit, but it's a profit car share that gives its profit to members. And so I just wondered, before, if we were to pass these motions today before adoption, is that something that staff has looked at already or could look at just to make sure the bylaw isn't in conflict in general, or was that purposeful to put nonprofit because this is only supporting technically nonprofit? Thank you.
Mr. Rennick.
Through the mayor, as I stated in the report, we just copied the language from City of Victoria's bylaw, and City of Victoria often has had, historically, when I compare our policies and our bylaws, City of Victoria has often treated nonprofits differently than they've treated for-profit businesses. So it's not really out of staff's intention to say we should only support nonprofits. And I believe that if it were the will of council, amending that bylaw, you could simply strike the not-for-profit cooperative and just have it defined as a vehicle owned by an association incorporated under the laws of British Columbia, if that were the will of council.
Thank you. Can I ask a follow-up question, Councillor Smart, to that? Is there any concern of that? Because the rationale that immediately popped to my mind is delegating authority to staff in a way that would benefit a specific for-profit enterprise runs up against some boundaries of what we can do. And I'm just, is there any concern from like, I know council can have the application, but I'm not sure if that's a concern, and maybe that's one of the rationales for it, Mr. Rennick.
I don't see that as being assistance to business because it's not a specific business, but I don't know if Ms. Hunt wants to weigh in on that. She pushed her mic away.
Okay, thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor Smart, you had other questions?
Yeah, thank you. Through Mayor to Director Rennick. So my question was just with regards to what is included in this bylaw change with regards to a car share and the other things that were listed in the report from April 17th from 2023 with regards to car share options. So for example, there was in the summary of the report, one of them was explore opportunities for assisting car share operators to use zero emission vehicles in the district. And there's some other things, and I just wanted to confirm, are the rest of the things potentially in that report from April 17th, 2023, which was in response to an earlier report from January 17th, 2022, are those things still potentially with our climate action planner, the rest of that report? Thank you.
Mr. Reddick?
Through the mayor, my understanding is that the broader implications of introducing car share are indeed still with the climate planner. The resolution that this report was responding to was a very narrow one from council seeking just for the streets and traffic bylaw amendments that would be required should in the future the district move to car share co-op.
Councillor Smart?
Yeah, thank you. Just one last question through you, Mayor. I just was hoping through you, Mayor, to Director Rennick, if you could just elaborate a little bit more on the definition of commercial vehicle and commercial license plates, because that was something that I was not familiar with and I didn't totally understand after reading the report. Thank you.
Mr. Reddick?
Through the mayor, the streets and traffic bylaw defines commercial vehicle as being something that has both commercial license plates and also meets a couple of different requirements. Some are gross vehicle weight, some are carries insignia associated with the trade, but that commercial license plate is the requirement. If it doesn't have a commercial license plate, it's not a commercial vehicle as per our bylaw. Commercial license plates are issued by ICBC to denote vehicles that belong to fleets or belong to commercial businesses. Having confirmed with our bylaw officer, they actually follow a different syntax where your typical license plate would be 6 characters. The commercial ones are 2 characters followed by a space followed by 4 characters. Our scan of the Evo and Moto car shares indicated that those vehicles do not have commercial plates. They have the typical 3 and 3 like a passenger car, and thus they don't meet our bylaw definition of commercial vehicle.
Mr. Reddick. Councillor Braithwaite, I have you next.
Thanks so much. Okay, so I think what I heard was that we're not being asked to support the car share in principle. We're just simply enabling it procedurally at this stage. I think that's what I heard. And also that future car share locations would not come back to council. They'd be fully delegated to staff. Is that correct?
To you, Mr. Rennick.
Through the mayor, if this bylaw is given 3 readings tonight and adopted, all it is allowing is that in the future, a director of engineering could designate a parking space for car share vehicles. It does not address any of the other issues associated with allowing car share vehicles to operate in Oak Bay. So it's really kind of a paper tiger. It's something that wouldn't be enacted until the car share program was actually rolled out.
Thank you very much for the answer.
It concludes my speaking list, so perhaps I can seek someone to move first and second reading of the Streets and Traffic Bylaw.
No, Your Worship, I would move that Streets and Traffic Bylaw number 4100-2000, Amendment Bylaw number 4955-2026 be read a first and second time.
Moved and
Second.
seconded. Discussion?
Sorry, Mayor, are we not looking for public input on this as well?
Oh, my apologies. We are seeking public input on this. That's my bad. So before we get to any other discussion on this matter, I will seek anybody who wishes to speak to council. I don't see anybody online. I'm seeing nobody, everybody in the audience is shaking their heads. So we'll come back to this table. The motion is moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? Councillor Watson.
Just a comment. I just wanted to commend staff on selecting the simple option with respect to the disabled parking. Simple is often the best. It eliminates all the problems of people complaining about things, and having lived this life in another, having lived this situation of bylaw enforcement in another career, I think it'll serve the municipality really well. So thank you for coming up with a simple solution.
Thank you, Councillor Green.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Rennick, through you. And just a point about the Foul Bay stretch, reducing the speed limit. I totally agree with the City of Victoria, because just next to the bicycle shop is a hugely high-density, I believe it's either a 6-unit or I'm not sure how many units, but it's side by side, and that area is going to be incredibly congested and very difficult to navigate. So I think a lower speed limit is really necessary there. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
Your worship, I would further move that Streets and Traffic Bylaw number 4100/2000, Amendment Bylaw number 4955/2026 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. I thought we should debate on third. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Smart.
If this would be an appropriate time, I would suggest a potential amendment to that bylaw addressing for staff to review the phrase not for profit before the final adoption.
You just rescind first and second, or we're on the completed second reading?
An amendment is in order
Yeah.
at third reading. However, we would need specific language. If you would like language struck from the bylaw, then we would need that, please.
I'll give you a moment there, Councillor Smart. And I think it's the text amendment 1, which is means car share co-op vehicle means a vehicle owned by a not-for-profit cooperative association incorporated under the laws of British Columbia. Is that the one you're looking at?
Correct. So I would just make an amendment to strike the words not-for-profit.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that change? Oh, Mr. Rennick?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think you probably also want to strike cooperative too. Just because they might not be cooperatives, they might be corporations, just to give you the maximum flexibility.
Okay. I'll leave it to the mover if that's a desire of the mover.
Yeah, I could add that too if it doesn't. My concern was mainly the not-for-profit aspect of it. I'm not familiar if there's others that are.
Would we have to change
Yeah.
the name as well, Mr. Rennick? Because the definition is a car share co-op vehicle. So I'm concerned if it doesn't include the word co-op in the description, that might not work for that.
That is a fair point. I'm also pulling up Modo's website, and Modo says Modo is a car sharing co-op. So perhaps we can leave co-op in.
So the motion on the floor, not yet seconded, is to amend the language in the bylaw. And if you read the report under text amendment 1, section 1.2, it says means a vehicle owned by a not-for-profit cooperative. It would strike the words not-for-profit. Moved and seconded.
Thank you.
Is there, so the motion right now is to amend the resolution with those words. Don't see any other discussion on it. I'm not going to support this, not because I don't disagree with the intent of this. I'm a little cautious on this one in that I think that I find these kind of easy text amendments safer if we're following kind of a cookie cutter that's been gone through and had the legal reviews by another jurisdiction. So I'm not going to support this. I do support the overall piece of it. I understand I'll probably be standing alone on the resolution to amend. So the motion is on the amendment. I'm not supporting that amendment, but I will stick with that. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. If I could just motivate briefly, I guess my concern is that we're putting forward an amendment specifically for round-trip car share, and the only round-trip car share that operates in these communities that I'm familiar with isn't a not-for-profit. So we're actually potentially passing a bylaw that would do nothing. So that's my interest in striking these words so that we're potentially at least putting forward a bylaw that could capture the one user that we're aware of that may actually want to use this bylaw.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor Green.
I'm also mindful of our director's suggestion that we would, simple is better and generic may be better in this case, so I will support the amendment.
Oh, Councillor Braithwaite. On the amendment?
Mayor, I actually agree with the comments, and so I will be voting against it. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? So I'm going to call. So on the amendment, so the amendment is just to strike the words not-for-profit. Ms. Hunt?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would actually ask if you to refer this back to staff. I am a little cautious about the section 25 of the charter, which is assistance to business. And I know Director Rennick feels that this is an assistance to business, but we haven't had a legal review of that. And I'm just a bit cautious about providing preferred parking to a business entity, which, so I'm just a bit nervous about this one myself.
I'm going to make a suggestion here because I think we don't want this to get stalled. I might suggest that we do first, second, and third reading if that's the case, if the mover is amenable, and have a motion arising asking staff to look into that aspect of it and bring back a change of, I think that's probably a better way of going about it. So
More comfortable with that too. That was my original intention. Yeah.
Okay. So the mover is retracting the amendment?
Yes, I will retract the amendment.
Okay, and seconder as well. Okay, so we don't have a motion to amend on the table. I will stop after third reading and ask for a motion arising to seek that direction. Okay, so motion is back on first and second reading, or sorry, we're back on third reading at this point, correct? We've had, excuse me, moved. All right, seeing no other discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And then there'd be a motion arising here that would ask staff to bring back a report on the striking of the viability of striking the not-for-profit language. Is that?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know. Would it need to be a report or simply,
Ms. Hunt, is there any way that you would like that?
Yeah, sorry, Mayor, I don't think we need to do a report, but perhaps when we bring back fourth and final reading, we can let council know what the results of that was.
Okay. So we don't need a motion arising?
Yes, please. Motion arising to verify the legality of striking the words not-for-profit and bring that back. Yeah.
So I think moved by Councillor Smart to strike, to bring back that information when it comes back for fourth reading. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And if it's seconded, I just like to add a comment.
Sure, and my apologies, I've got a little tickle in my throat. It's not going away. Is it seconded? Moved and seconded. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this. I just want to make sure that we're actually following through with the intent of this bylaw change, which is to create a little more openness to potentially having a car share operator, approach us in the future. So that is my intention, just that we're not creating a bylaw change that really potentially doesn't address the need. So I hope that if it comes back that there's a legal hurdle to striking those specific words, that staff might also come back with a solution, being that obviously other municipalities have facilitated car share in their communities. So what is the approach that is needed? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? For my clarification, just so we get it on the record, my read of the way the resolution is that this will come back with fourth reading. However, obviously if it hits a wall and it says, oh, this is going to take a lot more time, we will just get back fourth reading as is, and we can maybe deal with that a little bit later. We're not going to hang up all of these text amendments. Is that? Okay. Just getting, so for the record, that was a confirmation. That was the intent here, so thank you. Okay, so the motion's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call the question on that. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. And thank you to staff for that, all that work to get this to us. Moving then to 9.3, Parking Facilities Bylaw, number 3540. Mr. Bull?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a minor amendment to the bylaw. to deal with something that has arisen after our previous changes to the bylaw. In the fall, we made changes in response to the ministerial order, setting parking across the board to park one stall per unit. But the way we had worded the bylaw, and we made some last-minute changes back then, which we now regret because it didn't quite cover everything we should. And I apologize for that oversight, but there is one minor thing in the bylaw that remains that we need to deal with, and this amendment seeks to fix that last loose end. Thank you.
Now that you said it's the last loose end, you know we're going to have at least one more come forward. It's Murphy's Law. Okay, any questions for staff? And then perhaps I can get someone to read the first and second reading.
Your Worship, I would move that Parking Facilities Bylaw number 3540, 1986, Amendment Bylaw number 4956, 2026 be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Any discussion? All those, Councillor Braithwaite?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. This does appear to be just a housekeeping amendment to align the bylaw with the previous decisions that we've made, and so I'm comfortable supporting it. But I'd really appreciate any future updates on how the parking changes are affecting the community, because I think we're probably going to see some of those things come forward. So I would just like to put that suggestion out there.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Any other discussion? All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
Your Worship, I would further move that Parking Facilities Bylaw number 3540, 1986, Amendment Bylaw number 4956, 2026 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. I see a hand for seconding. Thank you. This is for third reading. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That was, I see nobody online and nobody in the room for public input. So I'm going to go to 9.4. If anybody wishes to speak to 9.4 online, please raise your hand now. I'll hand this over to Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Mayor. A short introduction, and this bylaw follows up on a discussion with Council and your direction a couple of weeks ago to bring forward a bylaw that would delegate infill housing development permits to staff, certain other development permits, multi-use residential and commercial mixed-use development permits, but only if there's a repair or replacement of exterior features or to an existing building, or landscaping changes. Those are specific development permits also delegated to staff in the proposed bylaw. A second or a third piece in the bylaw is minor amendments to development permits that have already been approved. And fourthly, heritage alteration permits, but only where there are no changes to the footprint of an existing building or structures, or whether landscaping changes are proposed, or whether accessory buildings or structures are proposed. And those are now in the bylaw for delegated approval. In addition, there is a separate section proposed to be added to deal with temporary use permits. These are a new type of approval that is now allowed under the revised OCP. And the bylaw amendment also made sure that processes and expectations are included in the bylaw as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff on this? Don't see any hands. Mr. Bull, I had just one question, and that was just, I note in the report, it uses the term owner a number of times. The owner will meet with staff. Is that sufficiently loose that would allow the owner or the owner's representative in that scenario? Because obviously many times builders or developers are working on the behalf of the owner. So I'm just looking at the H2 processing procedure. The owner is referred to a number of times there.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Under the bylaw, an owner can appoint a representative or an agent, so that's part of the regular application process. So it doesn't have to be the owner if they appoint somebody else. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That was my assumption, but I just wanted to confirm that was true. Don't see other hands, so I'll seek someone to read in the first and second reading.
Your Worship, I would move that Development Application Procedures Bylaw number 4844 of 2023, Amendment Bylaw number 4950 2026 be read a first and second time.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Braithwaite, I didn't see your hand until after the motion was being read, so you can ask questions or make comments.
Sorry, I was just going to make a comment after the motion was on the table.
It is on the table, so please go ahead.
Thank you. It shouldn't come as any surprise. And again, this is nothing against our staff or anything, but I do really support ways of looking at efficiencies, but I'm really concerned that, again, that this amendment moves us further than intended. What starts as delegation for infill housing is now expanding into other types of development and heritage permits, and that incremental shift really concerns me about where decision-making authority ultimately rests. So I think it's important that council remain directly involved in these types of decisions to ensure transparency and public confidence. So I'm not going to support the bylaw. And again, I'm not opposed to efficiency, but I don't think it should come at the expense of accountability and public visibility for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Green.
Thank you. And likewise, I will not support this bylaw change, but for the same reasons I didn't support it the last time, and that is I would like to see the OCP play out and then sort of a test run and see how things go and then revisit this issue. So I will not support the changes right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Green. Don't see other hands. We are at first and second reading. I'll call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? I have Councillor Green and Councillor Braithwaite opposed.
Your Worship, I would further move that Development Application Procedures Bylaw number 4844, 2023, Amendment Bylaw number 4950, 2026, be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. I urge you to debate on third reading. All those in favor and those opposed? Councillor Green and Braithwaite opposed. That carries. That concludes our business on the agenda. We do have one piece of potential new business, and that is just the motion to consider a change of approach to policy. And so this is related to the legal expense reimbursement policy for conflict of interest advice. Councillor Smart, I think I submitted some language. Is it possible to bring it up on screen? So, Councillor Smart, this is a bit of a scramble before the meeting to get this put together. If you're comfortable with that, we'd like to move it.
Yeah, I'm comfortable moving that motion.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Do you wish to speak to it?
I'll just be very brief. I just think it's really important for the district that we provide some flexibility within this policy, and I think that it's very reasonable to have the perspective of our CAO to help manage that with the best interest of the district in mind.
Sure, and I think maybe for the benefit of the public, the current policy essentially sets a very specific amount per person per year, as opposed, but there is a pool of money reserved and available. So what this will allow is that sometimes in any given year, a councillor or a mayor may have more than one legal review undertaken and may bump up against that limit. And so this just basically makes sure that there's that flexibility in that. Still making sure that there's some money reserved for others by that 40% limit. And I think it's clear, it needs to be clear too, that the allocation and verification delegated to the CAO is essentially managing, as you pointed out, Councillor Smart, making sure that those percentages aren't exceeded and that they're compliant with the policy that's being asked for. That's in place. And just for council's thing, I think there was a copy of people shared on it. This is policy number CAS 017. As noted in the agenda, in the resolution. Thank you for, it's moved and seconded. That was, just wanted to give a bit of context for that. Is there any discussion? Okay. I'm happy, seeing no hands, I'm happy to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Patterson opposed? That carries. That's it. Notices of motion and then adjournment.
Move adjournment.
Moved and seconded. There we go. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite, for visiting from afar. And we will see you here Actually, we're off for a few weeks now, I think, until March 13th, I think is our, or April 13th is our next meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.